Hey, so I made this video of things that I think people should either be a little more aware of or things that I think are just cool to think about. And it turned out to be pretty long, as you can see. So to help you out so that you don't have to watch the whole thing, I'm going to list the topics that I talk about in the video right here, all right? Number one is the meaning of life. It's just my own personal idea of what the meaning of life is. Number two is weed slash marijuana slash cannabis and things that I think a lot of people aren't really aware of in that area. Number three is an intermission, which is just me not knowing what to talk about. Number four is about trusting people. Number five is about Earth and the things that are going on in Earth. And number five, which is the last one, is about, this one's a little hard to explain, but it's kind of my favorite, so I think you should watch that one for sure. It's about how each person has a different perception on life and how each perception is just as real as reality itself. And so yeah, that's them. They're going to be somewhere here. I actually don't know where I'm going to put them, somewhere. And you can go watch whichever one you want. And I'm going to put little timestamps so you know at what time each one is, so you can just skip through. And I hope you like it. Goodbye. I mean, no, not goodbye. I'm going to be talking to you for a while. I've tried to focus this for like 5 minutes now, which isn't that long, but I'm tired. So anyway, I want to talk about the meaning of life, alright? So I like to think about this a lot, personally. And I think that the fact that I like to think about it gives meaning to my life, you know? Okay, so I've always thought that the meaning of life is to be happy. Like I've just like taken that for a given. Like I've been like, we're alive, and the point of us being alive is to find a way to be happy, and just like that's it. Like that's what we're doing all the time. We're trying to find ways to be happy. And I could live by that, you know? Like that's a solid theory. Like whatever, yeah, sure, the meaning of life is to be happy. Like what? Who's to tell me that that's not true? But today I was thinking that it might be something else, and it's like I'm not sure if this is the first time I've actually thought about another theory apart from the happiness thing, but I was thinking that maybe passion from like our individual passions come from what we want to give meaning to. For example, I probably said that wrong, but I'm going to explain. I want to be a writer, and the main thing that I like about writing is the existentialist part. Like, for example, I like to write about the self and about how we see ourselves and how we live our lives, which is pretty much what I'm doing now by talking about this. That this is what I feel passion for. And it all comes from understanding, you know? Like, my goal is to understand people and the world and why we think this way and what we can do to make ourselves happy, you know? Like, why, like, just go into people, figure out why they think these ways, and then use that to help them be happy, because that's what I want to do for a living. So I was thinking doctors, maybe the reason that doctors and like that people want to be doctors is because they want to understand certain parts about the world through medicine. You know, like let's say a brain surgeon, he wants to understand why humans are the way they are, like why humans were created by studying the brain. You know, he wants to understand why we feel these ways and what parts of our brain make us feel these ways and what makes us think and all that kind of stuff. And it gives meaning to things because you're finding meaning, you know, like you're studying for the purpose of finding meaning. And maybe people who study space want to study space because they want to find why it exists. Like that's the whole point, you know? Like there's the Big Bang theory, and then there's why, you know? Like there's a theory like, oh, this is how it started, but why, you know? And there's people looking for different parts of everything that exists, and I think that that's what gives life meaning. The search for meaning is what gives life meaning. Wow, this was a long ramble, and that's a very anticlimactic conclusion, and I'm probably out of focus, but goodbye. Hi. I'm going to talk about marijuana. Marijuana has started to become legal in a bunch of states and across the entire world, right? And a bunch of studies have shown that it can actually be beneficial, right? Like it can help you focus, it can reduce anxiety, all that stuff. And there's medicinal marijuana, whatever. You know this, you know all of this. But I'm very concerned with the fact that the youth isn't very aware of the risks. And I think this is because, when our parents were young, all they heard was like the bad side of weed, right? So that's what they think of automatically. And the youth, we've been hearing about all these good news and like, oh, it's legal and it's good for this, it's good for that, whatever. It's not that bad for you. But it can be bad for you. Like, using marijuana can increase the risk of developing anxiety disorders, depression, and schizophrenia. And it can affect our ability to retain information. It can actually also be associated with a moderate decrease in IQ. I looked this up, okay? I'm like, this is for real. And a lot of people don't know that. And something else a lot of people don't know is that the risk decreases a lot with age, all right? So marijuana is becoming legal in a bunch of states, but there isn't a single state where you can legally purchase marijuana if you're younger than 21 years of age. This is because once you turn 21, the risk factors have decreased so much that it's possible to make it legal, But if you're 18 and you're buying marijuana illegally, that's 3 years. That's 3 whole years. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. The effects that it can have on you are so much worse than the effects it can have on someone that's 21. And in fact, after a certain age, I'm not sure which age that is, it's like 20 something, the effects of marijuana are reversible. But before that certain age, like let's say 16, 17, 18, like our age, 19, 20, it's not reversible. Like whatever happens to you, you can stay that way. Like it can decrease your IQ and then you'll have a lower IQ for the rest of your life. And something that I want to bring up is that we all know a burnout. Like I know that for sure. I don't care who is watching this, where you're from. You either know personally or know of a burnout. And you know what I mean. It's like there's people that just, they can't do things because of the way that marijuana has impacted them, okay? They're really slow. They forget everything you tell them. They can't react to things. And we all know one, and I know that. And why would you think that you're exempt? You're not exempt. No one is exempt from the effects that marijuana can have on you, okay? And just, I'm not saying stop smoking. Like, I know it helps a lot of people, and I know that the upsides are real as well. I'm just saying be conscious of how often you're doing it and why you're doing it. Because marijuana isn't necessarily an addictive drug. It's something that if you set it aside, you won't be like, oh, I need to smoke, whatever. It's not like that, but it is addictive in the sense that you will want to have it. Just like alcohol. Alcohol makes you happy, so when you're sad, your brain just goes like, oh, maybe you should drink some alcohol, and then you do. And it's the same thing with weed. It's like if you're bored and weed makes you have a good time, like the trip is fun for you, you're gonna want to smoke weed, and it's addictive in that sense. Like, yes, you could stop it at any time, but you're not stopping it, and you have to be conscious about the fact that you're not stopping it. Okay, like think about the amount of times that you smoke weed and realize that you're smoking weed all those times. Like, I don't care if you say that, yeah, I can stop whenever I want, because you're not. You're not stopping. You're smoking constantly. And I don't know who has to hear this, but I have friends who I know are like this, and they don't realize that it's affecting them, and maybe it's not even affecting them yet, but if they continue on that path, it really could. It could be so bad. And I just want everyone to know. And I think you should do research on your own if you are using marijuana, because what I did was minimal, and I think it's important that you do know what you're doing to your own body and what's going on in there. And if you find out things that you don't like, then you can stop. You'll know what's happening and you can stop. Or if you think it's not that bad and if you think you can control yourself and do it in safe ways, then that's good too. But you should know how to do it in safe ways. You should know what's happening. All I'm encouraging is awareness of what you're doing to your body. And then if you want to stop, then stop. You can stop anytime. Right? Adieu. This is a nice set, right? If only I had something to talk about. Gods of inspiration, please. Please. I'm gonna zoom in. Okay? You ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna talk about glass animals. No, I'm not. You know what's cool? The Beatles. Yep. You know what else is cool? You know. You know what's crazy? The fact that, like, everybody's got some of it. Can you hear that? Can you hear the college students? You probably can't. They're near. They're close. Everybody's got, like, something. Like, nobody's... I have a friend who told me not to trust anyone who doesn't trust me. So, now, I get where she's coming from, you know? It makes a lot of sense. It's like, why would you trust someone who isn't trustworthy, you know? Make sure someone's trustworthy before you put something important to you in their hands, right? But I don't think that this should come from their trust in you. Like, why do we always put so much weight on trusting people? I don't think it should be that way. I think we should just blindly trust people. I mean, of course, not completely blindly. Like, you should make sure that these are people that are worth telling these things to. For example, if you're going to talk to someone about something that's bothering you, something that's like really important to you that's bothering you, of course you want to tell someone who you care about and who's important to you. You're not going to tell some stranger that you just met. But also, you shouldn't stress about it too much. Like, once you tell someone something, your friendship becomes so much stronger. Like, have you ever had those conversations with people where they go like, oh, you're the first person I've ever told this to? Instantly, you feel like you're important to them, and like they're important to you, and there's just this instant connection. And I think that we're all so afraid of trust, and I understand that it's because a lot of us have had our trust broken a bunch of times, but I don't think that should stop us from trusting further, because so much good can come from it. And honesty can bring so many good things in life, and we stray away from it constantly, and we pretend to be people that we're not. And the first step in avoiding that is to trust and to just be yourself and be honest with people that you don't necessarily have a strong connection to build that connection and just kind of become better. I think this is a really good way to become better as a society, to just trust people, because if you trust someone, they're gonna trust you, and that's how it works, because that's how most people think. It's the same thing my friend said. She'll only trust people if they trust her. So why not make the first step and actually go ahead and trust people that you're not really close to and become close with them and like get more friends and more people in your life. Okay, first of all, let's address the elephant in the room. This hat does not match this shirt at all. Anyway, so I'm in this class that talks a lot about infrastructure and the environment and stuff. And so I found out today in that class that Mexico City is sinking, okay? Like, the city is sinking. Literally sinking, because they've taken so much water out from the ground that it's just, the rock is like, and it's sinking the whole city. Like, look it up, it's crazy. Also, There's this thing called fracking, which we do to get water and oil out from the ground. Okay, so what you do is you drill a hole into the ground, you drill like sideways into the ground, and then you apply pressure with either air to like all the sides, like all around in underground, or water. And what this does is that it breaks up the rocks into like little pieces, and it creates channels within the rock so that you can access the clean water or the oil. Depends on what you're looking for. We do this all the time. Like, this is like the main way to find petroleum and water underground when the rocks aren't permeable, which means that it comes out on its own. We do this a lot, and studies have shown that it can cause earthquakes. Okay? Humans are causing earthquakes. Isn't that insane? Like, it just, I don't even know what to say about it. Like, just think about it for a second. Just like give it a second to sink in. We're making earthquakes happen. Us. Humans. That is what we're doing. I think that's insane. In Pennsylvania, this lady, there's this video on YouTube of it, so if, like, look it up if you want. This lady put a match to her water faucet and it caught on fire because there was so much methane in the water from like the pollution that the water was catching on fire. Do you realize what we're doing? Like, there are so many worse things happening than I thought. Like, I know, I'm aware that the earth is dying, and I know, but like the processes that are causing it are so, like, I had no idea. And the problem with it is that these are processes that we depend on. Like, if we don't do fracking, we're not going to get oil. What would we do without oil? Come on. Oil, petroleum, like, what? No cars, no nothing. Like, nothing would work. No electricity, no nothing. What would we do without water? We'd die. We would die. There was another one that, like, caught me by surprise. Crap, what was it? Oh, okay, so another way that they've been mining for coal recently, like, you know, for petroleum, they've been mining for coal by blowing off the entire top of a mountain and getting it like flat on the top, and they just dig at ground level because they know where the coal is, like where the coal reserves is, so they just blow up the mountain. And then there's no more mountain, and they fill up valleys with that ground, with like the ground that they took from the top of a mountain. We're destroying literal mountains. What? I just think the whole thing is so crazy, okay? There's a poem by William Wordsworth called We Are Seven, where the narrator walks up to this little girl and he just starts to make small talk, and he's like, hey, little girl, what's your name? How old are you? How many siblings do you have, right? And when he asks how many siblings she has, the girl says that she has 6. She says, we are 7. And he asks where the rest of her siblings are, and she says, 2 of them are here, 2 of them are, 1 of them is there, whatever, and then 2 of them are buried in the backyard. And the guy's like, oh, so you're not 7, you're just 5 because 2 of them died. And she's like, no, they're there. They're still my siblings, we are 7. And they keep arguing back and forth, and at the end of the poem, there's no real resolution, right? And so, there's a lot of things you can get from the poem because, you know, all of these poems from the Romantic period are very elaborate and they have a lot of themes. But what my favorite thing that I got from it was the idea that to the man, the girl only has 4 siblings. They're just 5. Those 2 that died, they don't exist anymore. They're not there. They don't count. But to the girl, they do count, and they still exist, and they're very real, whether it be in her memory or just to her, she believes that even though they're not present at the moment, they still exist. Their souls exist, right? And this is a really cool concept because it kind of shows how each person has their own individual reality. And the argument that Wordsworth is making here is that everybody's reality is just as valid as anyone else's, right? And it is also just as valid as reality itself, like the world, independent from any people, any one person. So this is really cool because there's a lot you can get from this. Like, for instance, there's the idea that within the universe that we live in, like, how there's the infinite parallel universe theory. Well, within our own universe that we believe in, there's an infinite amount of realities that we get to explore whenever we meet someone new. And it's so cool. Like, that's why human interaction is so interesting and so important, because nobody sees things the exact same way that you see things. Nobody sees any one person the way you see them. Like for example, my two little sisters, a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I share the same mom, and I completely guarantee you that each one of us sees my mom as a different person. We have our own perception of who she is, and I'd like to think that I know her a little bit better because I've been around for longer and she's told me stories and stuff, and they see her, I think, more purely as a mom from a child's point of view. She's this perfect person that's there to take care of them, and she corrects them when they're wrong and all that stuff. And yes, that is how I see my mom as well, but there's a bunch of other little things that we don't coincide on, because the point of view from two children, from a child, a baby, and a teenager, are very different no matter what. And even when they're older and when they're the age that I am now, they're still not going to see her as the same person that I see her now, because we've each had different experiences with her. And it's just, whenever you meet someone, you meet them in a completely different way than everyone else has ever met them. And that's so cool, because no one will ever see anything the same way you do, and much less everything, which means that with each little thing that has been different in everyone's life, it has led to so many other things that are different in everyone's lives. And this is why people have different beliefs, and each reality is valid, which is why it's important to listen to other people's beliefs, even if they differ from yours. And some people believe in abortion, in legalizing abortion. Some people don't believe in legalizing abortion, and each person has a reason. Okay, they're not just blindly like, no, don't do it. And I think it's important to hear those reasons, like hear why some people are for it and some people are against it, and you can have your own point of view and stand by it. But it's important to acknowledge that everyone's point of view is valid. And on the other hand, there's priorities, right? Everyone has different priorities. Like, for example, some people might prioritize their family and other people might prioritize their studies. And there's no reason why one of those is more correct than the other. They're both equally valid. And we shouldn't put people down for disagreements. This is why, because we have a completely different life and view on life than everyone else does. And it's so important to have that in mind. And where things get complicated is in the point of overlap between these realities, which comes in when we interact with each other as people, right? And what controls this interaction and decides what is right and wrong is concepts of morality, which I think should be pretty universal. They're not, not everyone has the same morals, but they should be more or less on the same grounds, and that is what we're striving for. So when we differ in opinions, what we want is, if we feel that our morals are correct, we want to show someone with loose morals that what they think could hurt other people, possibly. And if some people try to correct us, it's important to listen as well, because we aren't always right, and that's something that we have a lot of trouble accepting, that we can be wrong a lot of the time, okay? And especially when we discuss politics, which is something that affects everyone, it's very important to listen. And if once you've heard the other person's complete argument, you still think that they're wrong and that your sense of morality tells you that they're wrong, then you can counter and explain to them what you think. And if at the end you still disagree, then so be it. But you keep your morals. That is what's important within the field of differing realities. I don't remember what my original point for recording this was. I think it was just to point out the idea that everyone's reality is valid, and that it's something that we should be aware of. And it's not, also, we tend to think that everyone sees things the same way we do, and they don't. The reality is that even people that agree with us, they don't agree for the same reasons. Everyone has a different reason to believe what they believe. Even if they're similar, there's always something along the way that shaped them in a specific way and shaped you, something different that shaped you in a specific way, and you just both happen to end up at the same point, but you don't believe in the same things for the same reason, even if you use the same reasons to back it up. Do you understand me? Like, there's a different reason for everyone to believe in something, and it's important to listen to all of those reasons, because sometimes those reasons could do other people harm, and morals come in, and you check that person, and other times you and what you believe in might somehow do other people harm as well, and it's important to listen as well.